Alright, we got some exciting watch repair stuff to show you today. I've got a ladies watch movement, very small. Don't quite like working with ladies watch movements, but I had to do it because it was for a friend. So first, the big problem I have is I disassembled the ladies watch movement. There it is there, and sitting there all nicely disassembled. You can't really see this because there's too much shiny stuff going on. So anyway, it's sitting there in the middle, the movement. And the problem I had is I took out the cap for the lower jewel on the balance, and the cap just sits right on top of that jewel, and you've got to clean it off with some pegwood and then put it back. But first you got to remove the shock spring. Now the shock spring kind of holds that cap down, and if there's any shock on the balance that might push it up like this, the cap would move ever so slightly up, and the shock spring would allow that to happen. So as I said in showed you in another video, I was removing that cap spring, and the thing went ping like this and ended up somewhere in my office, whatever. Ended up somewhere. Could not find it. Don't know where it is. It could be sitting somewhere. I'll find it 10 years from now. So the problem I have now is I had to get another shock spring. So I went on cousinsuk.com. I ordered 2 packs of 25 shock springs. I found one shock spring that was small enough, because for some reason this particular movement requires it's the lower part of that jewel, and shock spring is like so small, it's crazy. So anyway, nothing fit, so I went online. I went to watchrepairtalk.com, I believe it is, and a gentleman named Nickel Silver on there gave me a really good hint. He said to put that other shock spring back in. Here's the technique. Now, before I go there, this is like in those movies when you watch movies and you say 2 days ago, and you have to go back, and you're like, oh my God, I got to go 2 days back to find out what happened just now, right? Or they show somebody that was shot or something, and then you're like, did they really die or not? And then you got to go back like 5 days to find out what happened. Well, this is what I'm doing right now to you. So going back just a little bit here, the shock spring I found was kind of 3 positions, 3 little arms. So it's like a donut, and then there's 3 little arms sticking out. And in the jewel setting itself, there's 3 little indents, and you got to lay this down on top of that cap jewel, and the 3 little arms, and somehow push all 3 arms down at the same time, and then rotate them, because these arms will slide into individual slots, 3 different slots. So I was thinking, how the heck do I do that? Do I take a piece of Watchmaker's Rodico, which we all know and love? This is a Watchmaker's Rodico. You can form it. It's good for cleaning, all kinds of stuff, right? Do I take that, lay it over the shock spring, take my 2 hands, go into open my this is the end of my stereo microscope. So take the stereo microscope, get in close, and do that. Or let me put the dust cover back on that so it doesn't get all dusty. Get back on. Anyway, or do I ask for advice? So people are always asking me for advice, and in this case I said, okay, I've seen a lot of different shock springs before, and I've never had a problem putting them back in, but this one here is going to be a PIA, I think it's called. So I said, okay, let's see if I can attack this a different way here and just ask somebody for help. So I put a big message on watchrepairtalk.com, and Nickel Silver got back to me this morning, like within an hour. It was really good. And he said take a piece of pegwood, right? This is typical pegwood, so it looks like a toothpick, right? Take a piece of pegwood and take the end of that pegwood and then round it out with a burr, right? So that basically only the edge is there, and then you can put the pegwood down on the shock spring, and it'll touch all those 3 arms and just rotate the pegwood because it'll grab it. And I said, what a great idea. Then I took the pegwood and I took the movement, and the pegwood is way too big. So what am I going to do? You can't kind of whittle the pegwood down, and I probably don't have a burr small enough to make that concave in the end of the pegwood. So I thought, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to get out my lathe, one of my lathes, behind curtain number 1, and I'm going to take that lathe, put this pegwood in the lathe, and then very slowly take material off the pegwood, place it onto the top of that cap jewel setting and get it down to the exact right size. And after I've done that, put it back in the lathe again, and then hollow it out just a bit so that it fits over the concave part, fits over the convex part of the jewel. Is that right? I think it is. So convex rounded part of the jewel, the dome, and then grabs that shock spring, and then I can just go like this and rotate it. So that's actually what I'm going to do. So we're going to see if this actually works. So I'm going to, before I do any of that stuff though, I'm going to have to show you a card trick. All right, time for the world's fastest card trick. Hopefully you'll like it and are not commenting on what a crappy card trick. So let's pick a card that stands out on the deck. So let's pick the, say the King of Hearts, like that. And I'm going to put that card on the top of the deck, okay? It's one card. Just make sure you know I'm not fooling around here. Put that card on the top of the deck like that. And now very carefully what I'm going to do is swing cut the deck once, like so. And then I'm going to push that card up just so you can see that. Put that on the top and then throw it into the middle of the deck, and then throw the whole lot inside. Square up the deck like so. Pass my hand over the top. This is the magic pass. Get nothing in my hand. Go like that. Let's see if that worked. It did. The King of Hearts. What a great trick. And just to prove it, it's a normal deck of cards. Alrighty then, here phase 2 in my adventure. So I've got my Boley lathe here. I believe that's a Boley in the end. A G Boley lathe. My nice headstock and everything else, counter shaft, all kinds of stuff. So first thing I have to do is pick the right size collet. So I'm going to just, I've got a piece of pegwood here that I'm going to use. So the idea here is I'm going to flatten out this pegwood. I'm going to carve it down to the size of that jewel setting I was talking about. And then I'm going to hollow it out and make sure it works. So I need to pick out the right size here. So just poke around a bit until it feels like it's the right size. It's almost the right size. And this is too small. So this is the right size right here. So this is the collet I'm going to be using. And I just put that in the lathe. See, here we go. Tighten that up a bit. Like so. And then I need to stick this in here. That is pretty tight, and I'm just going to shave it down just a bit. So it doesn't have to be perfect because it's just a piece of pegwood, so it's not doing anything creative here. So that's nicely snug in the lathe, and I got to make sure the belts are on, and just move that up just a bit, just a tad, as they say. Make sure the belts are on the lathe here and everything's kind of working. And I'm just going to cut out and reposition the camera so you can see what's going on. And I just picked a normal carbide drip tip graver. I don't really need to use this because it's only wood, right? But what the heck. So put that inside my collet or my graver handle and tighten that up. And I've got a tip on there that's kind of a very sharp tip. Now I got to somehow plug my lathe in, and the power cord is way over there. Try that out. Alright, I'm just going to call this through lathe video. So right at the end here you can see my piece of pegwood, and I've got my I'm going to grave it through here. I couldn't get a better camera angle without moving a lot of stuff, so just bear with me. So all I'm going to do is shave some material off of this, and then I'm going to measure to see if it fits in the jewel setting. So let's just remove a little bit of material here first. And this is just wood, so it should come right off, no problem. And I don't have to worry about this being perfect. I just need to have enough wood taken off that it fits the jewel setting. So I can stop that and do a little bit of measuring here. All right, looks like I got to take off just a bit, just a tad more, as they say in watchmaking, just a bit more. Now it can be slightly conic, it doesn't need to be straight up and down, so I've taken off a little bit more, and I'm going to test and see if that fits inside that jewel setting. So I want it to be inside of the jewel setting and touching those arms. Alright, I'm risking screwing things up here, but there's the movement right there, and there's the three little arms, and I'm just going to watch my camera here, but I don't want to screw this up. And there's the piece of pegwood here. I'm just sort of, and this pegwood has to be just inside of those arms right there, and then I've got to hollow that out so that when I push down, it just pushes the arms and doesn't push the jewel down. So that's the trick. So let me go back to my lathe and do some more work. I think the size is probably correct right now, but it needs some work with respect to hollowing it out a bit, right? So just don't want to drop anything here because it's going to be a disaster. Okay, this is so close I even had to take my hat off, so I put a different pair of goggles on here. But what I need to do now is just make sure that I got to get that graver inside of the tip of that piece of wood to hollow this out and just leave a nice edge in there to allow for this to work. And I'm not sure if this is going to work at all because it's a pretty thin piece of wood. I may have to do it again, but I'm not too concerned because it's pretty easy to do. So let's try this out. Going to adjust the height there because it's a little bit too high, so just move the tool rest down a bit. Right, should angle the tool rest a bit. That's a good idea so that I can attack it from the front. Make sure the tool rest doesn't touch the collet so I don't get any rattling going on. And let me see if that's good enough. Yeah, it's pretty good there. So I got to cut inward now on this and just take a little tiny bit of material out of there. So I'm going to try to do that. Again, apologize for the fingernails. I play guitar. I'm going for a pretty high speed because I don't want the wood to break. So I'm going to see if I can take it out with a pretty high speed. Alright, that's hollowed a bit. I don't know if that's enough though. See if I can take a little bit more closer to the edge here. It's not bad there. Gotta get rid of that little nib in the center and we're good. See if that worked. That might do. I'm going to give you a close-up and see what we got here. Alright, there it is there. Nice little close-up. And that's nicely hollowed out, as you can see. So I've got a piece of pegwood, and I use my graver to remove the inside to kind of make it conic on the inside, and that'll fit right over the jewel, and I'll use that to push the shock spring in. So I'll see if I can videotape that. That'll be pretty cool if I can videotape this, which means I can't use my stereo microscope to do it, and I could screw it up, but let's do it anyway just so you can see how that's done. And again, thanks to Nickel Silver, one of the guys on Watch Repair Talk blog. He gave me an answer really quickly, and I was like, this is a pretty cool way of doing it. I was actually thinking of using a stake from a staking set, but it wouldn't grip the wings or the little arms of that shock spring. So let me get back with that. Alrighty then, so here's the watch movement I've been talking about, and here's the tool I created to just push down on that shock spring and see if I can rotate that and put that back in place. So I'm going to do this on camera, which is kind of uncanny, but also have to get some very high zoom glasses on here. Alright, here we go. My lighting is actually pretty shitty here because I'm dealing with the camera lighting and not my lighting, so I'm going to take a breath, relax, and see if I can do this. Looks like it didn't rotate. Try it again. Alright, that didn't rotate, so my dome might not be deep enough to do this. Let me try it a little. I'm going to try this again. That's a technique, but I'm going to have a look at where I'm sitting and everything, but I've got to get in nice and close here, and I don't know if I can videotape that. Well, as I said before, I show all my faults when I do videos, so this time what happened is when I pressed down on it, I might have pressed down a bit too hard, and that actually broke one of the little tiny arms on that shock spring. So it's a great technique. It did rotate, but that arm must have been pretty fragile because it just broke that arm on the shock spring. So I'm going to try something else. I did make one more shock spring that might have been close to working, and I'll try using this tool with that shock spring. Alright, I've got shock spring number 2 here. So this one here was a smaller spring with arms, and I ended up filing the arms down using 2500 grit diamond plate. So I'm going to see if I can rotate this one into place. I'm just going to move it over so I can do it and watch it. You saw the technique earlier, and I'll just show you the end result if it worked. Alright, plan D, I think I'm at plan D right now, is to use this tool like I had before, but then when I have it down, I'm going to nudge it with the screwdriver and see if that works. So, but I've got my stereo microscope on right now, so what you're seeing there is my stereo microscope. So I'll try that. Alright, there you go. That's the end result. So I took a previous one with the little tiny arms, used exactly the same technique, but this time what I did was I took the tool I built and I put it over the top of the jewel movement. So I put this over the top, and then I used this is not what I used, but I used a very small screwdriver, and I just kept nudging the arms and then rotating the movement and nudging the arms and rotating the movement and nudging the arms, and I got it in, and it's actually in fairly good. I don't think there's any issue with this thing falling out at all. So the cap jewel's in there nicely. Job done. I believe we have success. So I'll just be able to reassemble the watch movement now. Oh my god, this was difficult. Very good. Alright, that was one heck of a job, as I was saying. So what did I end up doing? See if I can draw a picture here. Is that white out? That does white out a lot, right? So I've got my my jewel setting like that. Yeah, it's too white out. I gotta fix that. So hang on. See if I can do something with this auto exposure. What do you think? There we go. That's a bit better. It's a little dark, but at least you can see the drawing better. So what I did was I have the jewel setting like this, and then inside the setting was 1, 2, 3 indents like that, right? So turn this a little bit like this. That's better. So it went like this, and then it did an indent, and then it went along the rail like this, I did another indent along the rail like this, and did another indent, and then along like this. And inside these areas is where the groove was. So the jewel was sitting. I'll just draw the jobby-do I had to put in there. So this is the shock spring. Then shock spring went like that, and it went around, and it went like this. Sort of where the three tabs are is where the shock spring arms were. It's like that, and then like that, like this. And then on the inside of the shock spring was basically a donut hole. So it's a Tim Hortons donut hole, like this. See if you can see that. There you go. That's actually much better, like this. So I'm going to put this right in front of my face. So what I had to do, let me angle it so I can see it too. So what I had to do was I used the tool that I talked about earlier, and I put the tool over the top of this shock spring. This is the cap jewel in here, right? So I put the tool over the top of the cap spring, and it pushed down on these tabs. And then I took a screwdriver and I went at an angle, because just rotating the tool didn't seem to want to rotate this whole shock spring. So I took a screwdriver and I nudged the edge of the arm of the shock spring. Is that working? Yeah, there we go. There's an arrow, a really crappy arrow. Anyway, I nudged the arm of I nudged this arm upward, and then I rotated the whole movement, and then I nudged the next arm, and then rotated the movement again until it caught, and then I just kept nudging and rotating and nudging and rotating until the whole thing went in. So, and this shock spring was not the one made for this particular watch. So I think it's probably going to hold the cap jewel down a little bit too much, but since it's a lady's watch and it's so small, there's not going to be a lot of shock on that end pivot anyway. So, and the end pivot would be touching right here. And earlier I did a video that showed me taking this cap jewel off, cleaning it, and then putting a dab of oil on it, and then putting it back on. So this is quite the job. I had to actually, these shock springs, actually the arms came out like that, so they were out a lot further, like this, and then I had to hold those with my tweezers and then scrape them on a 2500 grit diamond plate to grind them down to the right size, and then it fit once I did that. So I tried using that other shock spring I got, and it was way too delicate and bent on me. One thing was when I started nudging these upward, I got a little, this nudged this way and this one wasn't, so I got a little warp on here, so I had to actually push that warp back down and make sure all of these were kind of in the slot before I started nudging them away. So working with these cap springs, if you're trying to fashion a cap spring for a watch, especially a very small ladies watch, it is a pain in the Batinsky, and it is very, very, very difficult. So, but I guess it was my fault because I lost the spring in the first place when I was removing it, which is not something that I've heard a lot of other people online say that this happens a lot, and so you should have spare cap springs. Well, I got tons of spare springs, but they're all not minuscule like the one required for this very, very small watch movement. So, but I believe I'm good now, so I'm going to reassemble the watch, and then test it, run it, test it. I do have to replace, I actually have to find a hand for the watch because it only came with one hand, the hour hand. So I got to find a minute hand and fit that, which is going to be a whole other job. And with these small ladies watches, if they don't fit, it's going to be very hard to make the hole bigger, or stake the hole smaller, because it's a ladies watch. It's, again, really small, really small. That's my impersonation of you know who. Anyway, so thanks for watching the video. I'm just going to process this baby here, and it was quite the job. I just wanted to show you what happens and the various problems that you can get, you can face in doing watch repair. Right now, it looks really good. It looks like it'll stay where it is. There's no problem there. It's gonna, stay in place. It won't rotate out or anything. So it was at the end of it, it probably took me 3 hours to do what I did, and a lot of work. So I obviously won't charge the individual the time it took me to do that, because I shouldn't have lost the stupid spring in the first place. I did learn a few things anyway, and thanks again to Nickel Silver for giving me that tip on how to create the shock spring replacement tool with a piece of pegwood. So very cool. Thanks a lot. Thanks for watching my video, and see you next time. Hope you enjoyed it. I don't know if I have any more card tricks to show you. I think that's it. I can show you how to fan a deck. There we go. How do you fan a deck? You hold the deck in your hand like this, thumb on this side, and then on the other side, and you take your thumb like this, and then you rub it against the deck like this, and that will basically give you a nice even spread of the deck. That's how you fan a deck. And I also could show you how to turn one card into another. Let's see if I can still do this. There we go. And if you want to know how to do that, I can train you. So I'll talk to you later. Thanks for watching my channel, and have a good time. Bye-bye.